All right, so welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive with us.
Yes, welcome back.
And today, we're going to be looking at something a little bit different, actually.
Yeah, this one's really interesting.
Yeah, this is Keeno Worldwide's 27 Club EP.
That's right.
And, first of all, Keeno Worldwide, this is, I think, his fourth studio release.
Yeah, he's been around for a while.
Yeah, so not a newcomer
No.
by any means. But what's really fascinating about this EP is it's so conceptual.
It really is.
Even just the names of the tracks are so interesting. Like you see February 6th and Hope 1960.
Right, and that's what caught my eye immediately. You know, when I saw the track list,
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, these are very specific dates and places. What's going on here?
Yeah. And of course we have all of the information for Keeno Worldwide's website and all of his merch and his newsletter and all of that in the show notes below. But
Absolutely.
we're just going to jump right into the deep dive.
Let's get into it.
For
So, yeah, I mean, looking at these dates and these locations, you know, obviously they're not random.
Right.
They actually correspond to the birth or death dates of musicians who are part of what we know as the 27 Club.
The 27 Club, which is, for anyone who may not be familiar with that term,
Right.
refers to a group of musicians, all of whom died at the very young age of 27.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
And, you know, there are figures like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, more recently, Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain. Yep. And it's, you know, their deaths are often shrouded in mystery or linked to, you know, the pressures of fame.
Right.
So it's become like this almost mythical.
It's a phenomenon for sure.
Yeah. Music history.
Yeah.
So what do you think that Keeno is trying to say by, you know, building an EP around this concept?
Well, I think it's really cool what he's doing because he's making us think about it, you know, and like you said, music is so subjective and open to interpretation.
Right.
So I think he's really just kind of setting the stage for some reflection on, you know, themes of legacy and the fleeting nature of fame and the price of, you know, brilliance like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's not necessarily telling us what to think, but he's giving us a lot to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump into some of these specific tracks.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you mentioned February 6th and Hope 1960.
Right. And that one's particularly interesting because that marks Buddy Holly's birth date.
Oh, wow.
So he kind of starts at the beginning with that one.
Right.
And, you know, you can kind of hear some, I don't know if you picked up on this, but I hear some like rockabilly influences in that song.
Interesting.
Which, you know, Buddy Holly was obviously very much, you know, a pioneer of that sound.
Right. So almost like he's incorporating this sound.
Exactly.
I think it's really clever.
Yeah, that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not just a tribute album. It's like he's having a conversation with these artists, the music, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
You know, another one that really jumps out at me is July 23rd in Camden, 2011.
Right. And that one's particularly sad.
Yeah.
Because that's Amy Winehouse's death. Yeah.
And that's a, you know, kind of a more modern tragedy in a way.
Right.
But I'm curious to hear how he tackles that musically because her style was so unique.
Yeah, I think, you know, he really captures some of that melancholy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I think, you know, another one that we were listening to earlier, September 18th in Kensington, 1970.
Yes.
Which is Jimi Hendrix's death.
Unfortunately, yes.
And there's such a heavy use of minor chords in that song.
There is a definite feeling of, you know, melancholy there.
Yeah, it's like this reflection on, you know, the tragic loss and, you know.
You know, the silence after such incredible music.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and speaking of powerful figures in music, we can't forget about Janis Joplin.
Of course.
Keeno actually has two tracks that seem to connect with her. March 8th in Corte Madera, 1973, which marks her death. But then there's October 4th in Los Angeles, 1970.
Right.
What's going on there?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, I think as artists, sometimes we revisit certain themes or ideas or moments
in our work. And so by including two tracks related to Janis Joplin, I think it's possible that he's kind of exploring
different facets
of her life or her impact or even, you know, her struggles that she went through.
Right. Or even, you know, musically, maybe one is more, you know, reflective of her raw energy and then the other one is more
introspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, you know, I mean, this is why I love doing these deep dives with you because it's like we just uncover all these hidden layers.
Absolutely.
And you just start to see the music.
You see it in a whole new light.
Yeah, in a whole new way. And there's actually another layer to this, which I find really fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more.
So this EP was actually created.
Oh, wow.
Back in 2017.
Okay.
But it was released more recently.
Interesting.
So what do you make of that?
Well, that's fascinating. Isn't it? I mean, was this intended as a time capsule?
Right.
Like a reflection on the past?
Or maybe it was like a personal project for him.
Yeah.
That he was working on before he decided to share it with the rest of the world.
Right.
I mean, it definitely adds like another dimension to it, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder about his mindset back then.
Yeah, and how his own experiences and his own perspective might have shaped this music.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, there's really just so much here to consider.
There really is.
To our listener, I highly recommend you check out this EP, Keeno Worldwide's 27 Club EP.
You're not going to regret it.
You're not just going to be listening to music, you're going to be stepping into a world of history and emotions.
It's a journey.
Yeah. And maybe even some unanswered questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as always, we love to leave our listeners with something to ponder.
Always.
So as you're listening to this, here's a final thought for you.
I like it.
If you were to create an album inspired by musicians, who would you choose and why?
Ooh, that's a good one.
What stories would you tell?
Yeah, think about what resonates with you, what inspires you, you know?
Yeah.
Let these artists' legacies kind of spark your own creativity.
Yeah, let it inspire you.
I love that.
All right, that is all the time we have for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.